In this video we're going to look at trigonometry. We're going to be focusing on finding missing sides. Now the most important part of trigonometry is labelling your triangle correctly. So we start off with a right angle triangle. Now the right angle, just like in Pythagoras, is going to tell us what to call this side. The right angle will always point to the longest side, which is called the hypotenuse. Now, the difference between this and Pythagoras is in Pythagoras it didn't matter too much which way round the short sides were. In trigonometry, what we do is we actually give them names and distinct labels, and we do that by looking at where this angle is. So I've highlighted the angle there. This side, which is a short side, is directly opposite that angle. So we're going to call this side the opposite. And the one that is directly next to it, we're going to call the adjacent. In this triangle, again, the hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, but notice how, if this is the angle I'm working with, then this short side, which was the adjacent, I'm actually now going to call the opposite because it's now directly opposite this angle here. This side, which was the opposite, I'm now going to call the adjacent because it's now next to this angle that I've highlighted. Take care when labelling your triangles, as this is often the first place that people go wrong. The next most important thing in trigonometry is this word. It's not a Brazilian footballer, it is a very, very efficient way of solving your trigonometry problems without having to learn 9 different formulas. Sohcahtoa. Now, you might be able to guess what the O, the A and the H stand for in this. They stand for opposite, hypotenuse and adjacent. They are all linked to the side lengths within this right angle triangle. S, C and T are something slightly different, which you may not have come across before. S stands for sine, or abbreviated to sine. C stands for cosine, or abbreviated to cos. T stands for tangent, abbreviated to tan. These three things are all to do with the angle. They're not the angle themselves, they are things that I'm going to do to the angle to change it slightly. A bit like squaring. Sine is a function that is going to change a number into another one for me. Let's have a look at a problem. Okay, so this is going to be our first example at looking at a trigonometry problem involving missing sides. The first thing I need to do is correctly label this triangle. So I'll locate the right angle, and the side opposite that is going to be called the hypotenuse. Now, the next side I'm going to label is the one in relation to this angle here. So X is opposite this angle, it's marked with an O. Now everybody knows that this one is going to be A, but I actually don't label this side. I leave it as O and H because this will help me later. My next step is to write out Sohcahtoa, but I write it out in a slightly different fashion. Sohcahtoa like this. The reason why is because I can fit SOH, CAH and TOA quite neatly into 3 different formula triangles, which I'll show you how to use in a second. Hopefully you can see that if I had the A in there, I would not be able to work out which one to use. Just having O and H tells me that the only triangle I can use with O and H in is this one here. So I am looking for O. Now in this formula triangle, whatever I'm looking for, I'm going to cover up. So if I cover up O, it tells me that O is equal to S times H. So in this particular example, S is going to stand for sine of the angle, which is 40 degrees, multiplied by the hypotenuse, which is 10. When I type this into my calculator, I'm going to press sine 40 times 10. This will give me an answer of 6.4, and don't forget your units, centimetres. Here's a second example. I'm going to start this one exactly the same as the previous one. First of all, I need to label accurately my triangle. So the side opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. This angle being placed here tells me that 12 centimetre side is the adjacent. I do not label this third side. Then I write out Sohcahtoa. And again, these fit into nice neat formula triangles. Now because I have an A and a H, it tells me that I'm not interested in this triangle, I'm not interested in this one, and that it's actually the CAH triangle that I'm going to be using. I'm looking for the hypotenuse, so I'm going to cover up H inside this triangle. Whatever's left tells me that H is equal to A over C. So the hypotenuse in this case is equal to the adjacent, 12, divided by c, which stands for cosine, or abbreviated to cos, of the angle, which is 55 degrees. When I type this into my calculator, I'm going to press 12 divided by cos 55. Pressing equals here will give me the correct answer of 20.9 centimeters. My third example, I'm going to label my triangle correctly again. So in this case, I'm not actually interested in the hypotenuse. This x side, which I'm trying to work out, is an opposite, and the 15 centimeter side is an adjacent. This means that when I write out my three triangles, so, ka, toa, it tells me that the only one I'm interested in is this triangle, as it's the only one that contains O and A. Now I'm trying to work out the opposite, so I'm going to cover this one up, and it tells me that O is equal to T, which means tan, times the adjacent. So that is tan of the angle, which is 67, multiplied by the adjacent, which in this case is 15. When I type this into my calculator, I press tan 67 times 15. This will give me a correct answer of 35.3 centimeters. Here are some questions to have a go at yourself. A couple of things to be aware of. First of all, label your triangles correctly. Secondly, only label the two sides that you are interested in. For example, you're given the side length 24 in the first example, you're trying to find the side x. You are not interested in this side whatsoever, so only label the 24 and the x. The third thing is to check that your calculator is set up in the right mode. Your calculator should display a D in the top line. If it says R or if it says G, you will need to get this mode changed. Pause the video here and have a go at these for yourself. Hit play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, let's have a look at this one then. So, first of all, this x is a hypotenuse and the 24 centimeter side is an adjacent because it's right next to my angle of 34. This tells me that I'm going to be using the cosine part of SOHCAHTOA, so I know that h is equal to a over c. This means that h is equal to 24 over cos 35. When I type this into my calculator, it gives me a solution of 29.3 centimeters as my missing length. In this example, I'm trying to find the adjacent and I'm given the opposite. So this is going to be a tan problem. So when I set it up for my formula triangle, it tells me that A is equal to O over T. In this example, the opposite is 9 and T stands for tan of the angle, so it's tan of 52. Typing this all into my calculator will give me a solution of 7.0 centimeters. In this example, I am given a hypotenuse and I'm trying to work out the adjacent. This is going to be a cosine problem. I know that A is equal to C times H, which means that it's cosine 15 multiplied by the hypotenuse, which is 20. When I type this into my calculator, I'm going to get a solution of 19.3 centimeters. This final example, take care with. The triangle has been rotated. Don't let this confuse you. The hypotenuse is still opposite the right angle here, and the opposite, this 4 centimeter side, is opposite the other angle you were given. Label it correctly. This will help you with the problem. Now I've got it labelled with an O and a H, I know that this is a sine problem, and I know that H is equal to O over S. This means in this example, H is equal to 4 over sine of the angle, which is 50. When I type this into my calculator, I'm going to get a correct solution of 5.2 centimeters. Hopefully this video has helped you with an introduction to trigonometry. The next steps you're going to look for is the video entitled Trigonometry, Finding Missing Angles. Thanks for listening.